The strange proposal, the mechanic named Ray stood quietly in line at the food dispenser inside. Station Theta 9, a dull place spinning between two moons, where nothing exciting usually happened. The lights flickered above, and the air always smelled slightly of burnt metal. As he waited for his ration, he kept his head down, wearing the same grease-stained uniform he wore every day. Then, suddenly, without warning, a small glowing hand touched his shoulder, and a young alien girl with silver hair and bright violet eyes looked up at him and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "You are perfect for my granny." The entire queue went silent, and a technician dropped his tray with a crash. Someone in the back coughed, but no one moved. All eyes were on Ray and the strange girl, who couldn't be more than 15 in human years. Ray blinked and said, "Excuse me," not sure if he heard her right. Maybe it was a translation glitch. Maybe she meant something else, but she smiled and nodded. "Yes, you are exactly what I hoped for. She will like you." "I know it." Ray looked around for cameras. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe he was being tested for some station loyalty program. But her face stayed kind and honest, and there was no sign of anyone laughing or filming. He stepped aside and lowered his voice. "Listen, kid, I think you got the wrong guy. I'm not perfect for anyone, especially not your granny." "Okay, but..." The girl didn't look confused. Instead, she looked determined and said, "My name is Luma, and I have been searching. I was told your emotional frequency is rare. My grandmother needs you, and you are the only one that matches." Ray stared at her emotional frequency. What did that even mean? Luma held out a small sphere. It floated above her palm, showing a hologram of an old alien woman lying on a bed, her skin pale and her eyes dim. "She is one of the last of our elders," Luma said softly. "She does not speak to anyone anymore, and we are losing her. But then our system found your rescue footage from a cargo ship 6 months ago when you stayed behind to help strangers. Your emotional pattern was scanned without permission, but we believe it is the key to saving her." Ray rubbed the back of his neck. He remembered that moment, the screams, smoke, the fear. He didn't do anything special, just tried to help, but now he was being told it made him suitable for some dying alien. "Noblewoman, this is ridiculous," he muttered. "I'm just a mechanic. I fix broken things. I'm not qualified to talk someone back to life. You are not chosen for skills," Luma replied. "You are chosen for how you make others feel." Ray sighed and looked at the line of people still watching him like he had grown 2 heads, then looked back at Luma, whose eyes were wide and pleading. "Where is your grandmother now?" he asked carefully. Luma smiled slightly. "Her ship is in orbit. If you say yes, we can leave in 1 hour." He should have said no. He should have walked away, taken his food, and gone back to his dusty workshop. But something about the girl made him pause. Maybe it was the way she kept her shoulders straight, like she had no one else to ask, or maybe it was that quiet fear in her voice, that if he said no, her grandmother might not make it. "All right," he said finally, "but I'm not promising anything. That is all I hoped for," Luma said and bowed politely. An hour later, Ray stood inside a sleek alien vessel, nothing like the old rust buckets he usually fixed. This ship pulsed softly with blue light, and everything was silent, like it was breathing. The hallway walls shimmered, and lights adjusted to his presence, as if the ship recognized him. He followed Luma through curved corridors until they reached a set of large silver doors. They opened without a sound, revealing a chamber filled with soft music, glowing crystals, and the faint scent of ocean air. At the center lay the old woman from the hologram. Her name was Elda, and she did not move. Her eyes closed, her breathing shallow, but she looked peaceful, like someone dreaming of a time long gone. Ray stepped closer, unsure what to say or do, but as he stood beside her, the machines around the bed beeped faster, lights turned brighter, and Elda's fingers twitched ever so slightly. Luma gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "It is working," she whispered. Ray felt a chill run down his spine. He looked at Elda again and saw her eyelids flutter just a bit, then slowly open, revealing faded violet eyes. "You came," she said in a voice like a breeze through broken leaves. Ray couldn't speak for a moment, caught between awe and confusion. Elda smiled weakly and said, "You remind me of someone I used to know, someone I lost long ago." Then her hand reached out and touched his wrist, and Ray felt warmth spread through him, not just physical warmth, but something deeper, like being seen for the first time in years. Luma stood quietly watching her grandmother change, watching color return to her face, watching the machine stabilize. "It is beginning," she said softly. Ray turned to her. "Beginning of what?" "The return of hope," Luma said, "because once she is strong again, everything will change, and not everyone will want that." Ray frowned. "What do you mean, not everyone?" But before Luma could answer, the ship jolted slightly, as if something had just docked onto its side, and a red light blinked twice on the console near the bed. Luma's face turned pale, and she whispered, "They are here already." Ray looked at her, heart thudding in his chest. "Who's they?" But Luma didn't answer this time. Her hand reached for his and held it tightly, as if bracing for a storm meeting the grandmother. The red light kept blinking, and Ray could feel the ship vibrating gently under his feet. Something had definitely docked onto the hull. He looked at Luma, whose eyes were now wide with fear, but before he could speak again, the doors behind them sealed shut with a low hum, trapping them inside the chamber. With Elda still lying motionless on the bed, Luma turned quickly to the control panel and placed her palm over a glowing circle. The walls responded by darkening slightly, and a shimmering shield covered the bed as if to protect Elda from something outside. Ray stepped closer and asked softly, "Who just docked with us? Is it someone dangerous?" Luma nodded slowly. "They are from our own world, but not friends, not anymore. They do not want my grandmother to rise again. They fear her influence, because once she regains her full strength, she can challenge the new leaders, the ones who have kept peace away for far too long." Ray tried to understand the weight of what she was saying. "So your grandmother was someone powerful once?" Luma glanced at Elda, then nodded. "She was a peace speaker, someone who could end wars with her voice. Entire fleets would pause if she called for silence. But after a betrayal years ago, she fell into silence and grief, and now they want that silence to stay forever." Ray looked down at Elda, whose chest rose and fell gently, her fingers still resting near his own when he had touched her before. He had felt something stir inside her, like old music finding a rhythm again. "What do they want with me?" Ray asked. "Are they going to kill me?" "No," Luma said quickly. "They will not touch you, not yet. They need to know how much she has recovered. If they sense she is still weak, they might leave for now, but if they feel hope in her heart, they will destroy it before it grows." Ray rubbed his forehead, feeling the pressure rise. "I didn't come here to get involved in alien politics. I just came because you asked me to speak to her. That's it. But you are involved now," Luma whispered, "because she chose to wake only when you stood beside her, and they will see that." Elda stirred again, her eyelids opening slightly, and this time she turned her head toward Ray. Her voice was stronger than before, though still slow. "You remind me of the old world," she said. "You speak without greed. You listen without noise. Your kind forgets how powerful that is." Ray knelt beside her, unsure what to say, but something in her eyes made him feel like a child being seen by a grandmother for the first time. "You gave me breath when I had none," Elda said. "They will come to silence that gift. Do not let them." Suddenly the chamber shook again, this time more violently, and the soft music in the room turned sharp and broken. An alarm began to buzz low and steady, like a warning. "They are trying to override the inner systems," Luma said. "They want inside the medical core. If they reach this room before she stabilizes, they will shut everything down and say it was a system failure." Ray looked at her and said, "Then we have to buy her time. Tell me what to do." Luma's hands danced over the control panel, sealing more doors, redirecting power channels, and activating interior locks. But she was still young, still unsure. Her hands trembled, and her voice cracked as she whispered instructions to herself. Ray moved to help, pressing buttons where she pointed, reconnecting fuses, rerouting cables, just like he did back in his station job, except this time, it wasn't about fixing broken ships. It was about protecting a lifetime. Passed slowly, the air growing warmer as systems strained, the lights flickering with every distant thud, as if someone was hammering on the ship's bones. Then came the voice, a cold voice echoing through the chamber speaker. "This is Overseer Talon, under Article 9 of the Outer Accord. We are authorized to disable unstable leadership. We require immediate access To the core chamber for health inspection protocol. Luma stiffened and said nothing. Her hand hovered over the mute switch but did not press it. Ray stepped closer to the speaker and said, "She is not unstable. She is healing, and you have no right to interfere." There was a pause and then the voice returned, "And who are you, human? Why does a mechanic speak in the place of ancient wisdom?" Ray didn't answer at first. Then he looked at Elda, who was watching him with quiet pride, and said, "I am someone she chose, and maybe that is what scares you most." The voice went silent again, then cut off completely, leaving behind a cold silence. Luma turned toward Ray and said, "They will force entry soon. I cannot stop them with code." "Then we don't need code," Ray said, looking around. "We need leverage." He picked up the same sphere Luma had used earlier, the one that showed the hologram, and said, "Can this transmit to the outer stations, to neutral satellites?" "Yes," she said, confused. "But why?" "Because if they silence her, they will want no one to know," Ray said. "But if her voice is heard beyond this ship, then they cannot hide what they are afraid of." Luma quickly adjusted the settings and placed the sphere near Elda's bed. A small beam of light scanned her face as she slowly turned toward the lens. Her voice came soft but clear and full of emotion. "I am not dead. I have not surrendered. Peace is not a relic, it is the force of truth. And I am its voice." Again outside the chamber, feet pounded against sealed doors, weapons, charging systems flashing red inside the chamber. The light around Elda pulsed brighter, and her voice continued across waves of signal, reaching places far beyond the ship. Ray stood between her bed and the door, his stance firm. His eyes set. "If they come in, let them see her awake," he said. "Let them see what they could not stop." Then the doors began to glow as if being cut from the other side, heat rising, smoke leaking through the cracks. But Ray didn't move and Luma didn't cry. She stood beside him, silent and strong. And Elda kept speaking, her words cutting through fear like fire through frost. The silent threat door kept glowing brighter as the heat lines crawled along the edges. Ray stood without moving, his heart beating hard in his chest behind him. Elda's voice continued, broadcasting her words, floating into space and reaching ears they never thought would listen. Again Luma checked the transmission link, her fingers tapping fast over the controls. "Signal is holding strong," she said quietly. "Even if they break in, her voice is already out there." Then came the sound of metal hissing, the final cut being made. Ray turned slightly, shielding Luma and Elda with his body. The door burst open, and 3 tall figures stepped inside, dressed in armored suits. Faces covered their weapons, pointed straight ahead. "Stand on." The lead one said, "Your actions violate council orders. Shut the broadcast and surrender the room." Ray did not move, neither did Luma. The old woman behind them kept speaking, her voice calm but powerful, reminding her people of the promises they had once made, of the unity that once held them together. "Second soldier, step forward. Lower the field, or we will use force." Ray looked at Luma and gave a tiny nod. She turned off the shield around Elda, but not the broadcast. Instead, she stood beside Ray, her head high. "You fear her voice," he said. "That is why you came with weapons." The soldiers hesitated for a moment, clearly not expecting resistance from a human mechanic and a teenage girl. "She is dangerous," the first soldier said. "Her presence destabilizes the council." She was declared mentally compromised by higher authority. "Then let them hear her," Ray said, motioning toward the transmission orb. "Let them decide for themselves." The soldier raised his weapon and stepped toward the orb, but before he could touch it, a new voice echoed through the ship, this one unfamiliar and deep. "Stand down. This transmission is being received by neutral systems. Any interference will be seen as an act of war." The soldiers froze. Ray felt a chill in his spine. Someone out there was listening, someone powerful enough to stop an armed extraction. The lead soldier turned away, tapping a come link. Then after a tense silence, he said, "New orders. We are to withdraw temporarily." They left the room without another word. The doors sealed behind them again, this time without damage. Ray turned to Luma, who was breathing hard. She looked at him with wide eyes. "You just faced down armed guards with nothing but words. I fix broken things," Ray said quietly, "and sometimes that means broken peace too." Elda Voice faded, and she rested back against the pillows, her energy spent, but her eyes brighter than before, the light in her skin returning slowly. She saved herself, Luma whispered. You just helped her stand long enough to speak. Ray sat down at the edge of the bed, his arms heavy from tension. The danger was not over. He knew that this was just the beginning. Later that day, the ship received a message from a distant satellite confirming that Elda's message had reached several major colonies. Some responded with silence, others with hope, and one even pledged protection. But among the good news came another warning. An encrypted message slipped through Luma's private channel. It had no name, no source, only 5 words. Human must be removed. Luma read the words out loud, and her hands began to shake. Someone wants you gone, she said. Maybe even worse. Ray stared at the message, trying to feel fear, but instead he felt something heavier, responsibility. Why me? He asked. I'm not special. I didn't train for diplomacy. I barely talk to people back home. But you were kind, Luma said simply, and sometimes kindness changes more than weapons can. That night, Ray couldn't sleep. He walked the ship alone, the halls dim and silent, his thoughts loud in his head. What had he gotten into? What would happen if they came again, with more than words at the lower level, near the storage bay? He heard something strange, a quiet buzz like static, then a soft click like a door opening. He moved slowly around the corner and saw a figure standing near one of the core engines, hands working quickly to plant something, a small, dark device blinking with red light. Ray stepped forward without thinking, grabbing the figure's shoulders, spinning them around. It was not a soldier, but a young alien technician, his eyes wide with fear and guilt. What are you doing? Ray demanded. The boy stuttered out words, but Ray only caught sabotage and protect counsel and silence her before she returns fully. Ray didn't wait. He knocked the device from his hand and pushed him to the floor, then called Luma through the comms. Within minutes, security had taken the boy away, but not before he confessed he was sent by someone close to the council, someone afraid that peace would mean justice for old crimes. Ray sat down in the corridor after they took the boy away, the weight on his chest growing heavier. The fight was no longer about helping a sick woman. It was about stopping something much bigger. Luma joined him quietly. She sat beside him without speaking for a while, then said softly, they fear her voice because it remembers. They fear you because you don't forget. I didn't ask for this. Ray said, I just wanted to help someone who was hurting. You did, Luma said. That is why they fear you even more. Ray looked at her, then smiled faintly. I don't feel brave, I just feel tired. That means you're still human, Luma said, and that's exactly what we need upstairs. Elda slept peacefully, her breathing calm, her mind no longer fading. She was healing faster now, the machines around her steady and strong, but outside the ship in corners of space where secrets hide, enemies were gathering, not with swords, but with silence, hoping to bury her voice again. Ray knew they would come back. He just didn't know when or how, but now he was ready to stand again, not as a hero, not as a soldier, but as a mechanic who knew how to keep things from falling apart. The uprising. The next morning, the ship felt heavier, as if even the air carried warning. Ray stood near the viewing glass, staring into the stars, while Luma adjusted the settings on the control deck behind him. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of thoughts they could not say out loud. Small alert blinked on the console. Luma pressed it, and a message appeared, not from All Eyes, but from a rogue communication channel. The words were sharp and urgent. Your broadcast sparked rebellion. Several outer colonies are supporting Elda. Now local factions have broken away. The council is preparing to respond. We advise immediate relocation. Ray read the message twice, his jaw tightening. They're afraid she's gaining power again. Luma nodded, her face pale, if more joy her side. The current rulers will lose everything, and they know it before they could plan anything. Another signal came through, this one darker, encrypted. With no clear source, Luma unlocked it with shaking hands, and what they saw made her gasp. A short video clip played, showing guards storming a small alien settlement, people running, voices shouting Elda's name before being silenced, and then the image cut off. They've started already. Luma whispered, they're wiping out anyone who listens to her. Ray turned away from the screen, his fists clenched. They're not going to stop until she's gone for good. Not just her. Luma said they want to erase the idea of her, the hope she gives to others. That afternoon the ship trembled again. This time not from docking, but from impact. Something struck the hull. Ray and Luma rushed to the main deck. Outside, a council warship had arrived, larger than any before, armed and surrounded by smaller fighters. A message came through immediately. This is the voice of unity. Surrender. The speaker, known as Elda, the human ambassador, and all transmissions, or we will destroy your vessel. Luma looked at Ray, her eyes burning with anger. They call you an ambassador. Now I'm just a guy who talks too much, Ray said. But maybe that's enough today. Elda, who had been resting in her chamber, now appeared on the main deck, supported by 2 guards. She walked slowly, but her presence filled the room, strong and unshaken. I will not hide, she said. Not now, not ever again. If they wish to destroy me, they will have to do it in front of every listening world. She turned to Ray and Luma and gave them a nod. Help me speak. Once more they activated the ship's wide-range broadcast, again connecting to every channel that had once picked up her voice. Earlier now, Elda stood in the center of the deck, her face calm, her hands open, her voice steady. People of all stars, she said, I speak not as your ruler, but as your memory. I speak because peace once lived among us, and it can again, but not with fear, not with silences. She spoke. The council warship powered its main cannon, aiming directly at their ship. The sensors screamed with warnings, countdowns flashing across every screen. Luma rushed to the shield controls, but the energy reserves were too low. They had used most of it during the last lockdown. We won't survive a full blast, she said, breath-shaking. Ray stepped forward, pulled open the emergency panel, and rerouted power from non-essential decks. Lights dimmed across the ship, but the shields rose just in time. The blast hit, shaking everything, but the ship held. Elda did not stop speaking, even as the floor rumbled under her feet, even as sparks flew from the walls across the galaxy. Her words echoed, and something unexpected began to happen. One by one, small ships appeared on sensors, independent freighters, old military vessels, even medical crafts, all tuning into her signal. Some began moving toward their location. Ray stared at the screen. What are they doing? Fire protecting her, Luma said, smiling through tears. They heard her, and they're coming. The warship outside issued another threat, but before it could fire again, one of the arriving ships placed itself in the line of fire, then another, then more, until the council vessel was forced to back away, unable to strike without hitting others. This is an uprising, Luma whispered, not with weapons, but with presence, with truth. Ray looked at her, then at Elda, who stood tall despite her age, her voice slowing, but never breaking. They can block her channel, but they cannot block 1,000 ships. Ray said, they cannot silence everyone. Suddenly alarms rang from the lower decks. Luma checked the feed and saw something terrible. Boarding parties, 2 of them, cutting into the ship from below, were being invaded. Ray said, they're coming to finish what they started. Elda turned to the guards. Help the young ones, she said. I will hold the deck. Ray grabbed Luma's hand and led her down the corridors, the lights flickering as intruders breached the walls. They moved fast, slipping through maintenance tunnels, heading for the detention cells. Why here? Luma asked, breathing hard. What are we doing? They took someone. Remember, Ray said, the technician who tried to sabotage us. He might know who sent him. They reached the cell area and found him awake and shaking, his eyes wide when he saw them. Need to run, he said. It's not just them, it's people inside your own ship. They were paid to let the council in. Names, Ray said. Give me names. But before the boy could speak aloud, noise shattered the ceiling above and armored enemies dropped into the corridor. Weapons raised. Luma reached for the emergency lock. Ray pushed the boy behind him and stood tall. This ends now, Ray said. No more running, no more silence. As the intruders stepped forward, the ship's come suddenly buzzed again, a signal overriding all others, this time from Earth. This is Command Station Orion. We have received Elda's message, and we support her. The council must stand down or face consequences. Attackers froze their mission, now exposed to human authorities. They hesitated long enough for Luma to activate the stun field and knock them unconscious. Ray looked around at the fallen bodies. At Luma's determined face at the boy who now held the names they needed. "This war is not over yet," he said. "But now we are not alone. The choice that..." Main deck lights flickered as the ship powered down non-essential systems to stay alive. Ray helped the technician boy up from the floor while Luma checked the console above them. The names he gave her were real trusted crew members who had taken secret payments to leave doors unlocked to let the council soldiers board without resistance. Hid behind loyalty to power, the boy whispered, "They think strength means silence." Ray looked into his eyes and said, "Then let us show them what real strength looks like." From the upper chamber, Elda sent a new message. This time not a speech but a simple call to all nearby systems. She requested an emergency alliance vote to be held in real time. Her voice would not beg, it would offer truth. Those who answered her call would decide whether peace was worth protecting. Again ships began to respond, not one or two, but hundreds. Some carried no weapons, only words. Others carried shields and promised to stand guard over those who chose to listen. Council warship hovered outside, now silent, not firing, not retreating, watching with the eyes of fear. Disguised as patience, they had not expected this many to rise, not for an old woman and a human stranger on the ship. Luma restored interior cameras, and what they saw confirmed their worst fear. The traitors had regrouped. They were gathering near the energy core, planning to shut everything down from inside. If they reach the main fuse, everything ends. Luma said, "The shields, the broadcasts, the alliance." Votre looked at the hallway ahead and nodded. "Then we go." Now they moved fast down steel corridors, the smell of heat and sparks in the air. Ray led with steady steps. Luma close behind the boy, following, carrying a handheld jammer to block any last-second signal from being sent to the enemy ship. As they turned the final corner, they found 5 figures blocking the core room, tall, armored faces hidden, but their weapons drawn. Ray stepped forward without fear and said, "Your time is up." The galaxy has heard her. They will not forget this time. One of the guards spoke. "You think words change the stars? They only fall when we allow it." Ray said nothing. Instead he opened his palms slowly. "No weapon, only will. I fix broken things, and you broke something that held our peace together." The guards hesitated, unsure how to respond. Then from the side a new group arrived, led by Elda's loyalists, once outnumbered, now brave enough to act. Inspired by her voice, they overpowered the traitors without firing a shot, binding them with light rope cuffs. The energy core was safe and above their heads. The vote began. Screens across the galaxy lit up with blinking lights, each representing a colony, a ship, a leader, each choosing whether to support Elda or stay with the council. Ray stood beside Elda, watching the screen fill with stars, one after another, glowing green in support. Some blinked yellow, unsure. Only a few turned red, still clinging to the past. When the final light blinked green, silence fell across the deck. Then the signal confirmed it. Alliance had spoken. Elda was restored, and the council was to dissolve by choice of the majority. The warship outside began to back away without another word, not defeated by battle, but by truth. Luma turned to Ray, her face bright with joy. "You did it. You helped her heal. You helped us all." Ray shook his head. "No, she did it. She just needed someone to stand beside her." The technician boy stood quietly, watching everything unfold, then looked at Ray and asked, "What happens to people like me now, the ones who did wrong but didn't know why?" Ray placed a hand on his shoulder. "We help you learn, so next time you stand on the right side." That evening, Elda requested a final meeting in the garden deck, where lights hung like stars and the air smelled like calm rain. She sat on a soft seat, her eyes now sharp and clear, her voice warm with peace. "Ray, you were never chosen by accident." She said, "You were seen because you see others, and that is what makes you powerful." "I am not staying, am I?" Ray asked softly. "That is your choice." She said, "You are welcome here always, but I believe someone back home still waits for you to return." Luma walked him to the shuttle bay, her steps quiet, but her hands gripping his tightly before letting go. "Will I see you again?" Ray asked. "We are allies now," she said, "and allies never say goodbye, just see you soon." As the shuttle rose from the landing pad, Ray looked back at the ship one last time, its lights shining, its signal reaching far into stars. He never thought he would touch. He came as a mechanic with grease on his hands and left as a man who helped restart a galaxy back on Earth months later. He stood outside the same station where it all began. The lights still flickered, the food still smelled the same, but everything inside him had changed one day as he walked home. A small device in his pocket blinked once, then a voice came through, soft and familiar. She misses you, Ray, so do E. Smiled toward the sky where stars now held names and stories and peace. The end.